My name is Jessica Parker, and I'm 29 years old. What happened at my sister's wedding last month is still being talked about in business circles across the country. Picture this: 300 guests in an elegant vineyard ceremony. My sister's voice echoing through the microphone as she called me her faithful servant in front of everyone. The reason? I'd been quietly handling every wedding detail for 8 months while building my tech startup. But here's what nobody expected. When the father of the groom stood up during the reception, the entire wedding party went silent. The man speaking wasn't just any proud father. He was the venture capitalist who just invested $5 million in my company. And he had something very specific to say about the woman my family had been treating like hired help. Before we dive into this story, please hit that like button if you enjoy stories about hidden success and family dynamics. Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments below. I love connecting with viewers who understand that sometimes the people closest to you see you the least clearly. Let me take you back to the morning when I thought I was just attending my little sister's perfect wedding. I arrived at Willow Creek Vineyard at 6 a.m., 2 hours before anyone else. The vendors needed coordination, the flowers required final arrangements, and somehow I'd become the unofficial wedding planner, despite having zero experience and a company to run. "Jessica, thank goodness you're here," my mother said, rushing over with a clipboard. "The caterer is confused about the seating. The photographer doesn't know the timeline, and your sister is having a meltdown about the centerpieces." I looked around at the chaos. 8 months ago, when Emma announced her engagement, I'd volunteered to help out a little with the planning. What started as booking a few vendors had somehow evolved into me managing every single detail, while my parents focused on guest lists and Emma focused on dress fittings. "Where's Emma?" I asked, setting down my laptop bag. "Getting her hair done." She said to handle everything and not bother her with details. You know how stressed she gets. I did know. Emma had always been the family princess, the one protected from any inconvenience or responsibility. While I'd worked part-time jobs through high school and paid my own way through college, Emma's biggest concern had been choosing between sororities. What my family didn't know was that during those 8 months of helping with the wedding, I'd also been building something extraordinary. TechFlow, my software company, had just closed its Series A funding round. $5 million from Morrison Ventures, one of the most prestigious investment firms in Silicon Valley. The announcement had been in TechCrunch 3 weeks ago, but somehow my family had missed it entirely. They were too busy seeing me as Jessica the helper, Jessica the problem solver, Jessica the one who handled things so everyone else could focus on more important matters. They had no idea that the little tech job I mentioned occasionally was actually a company valued at $25 million with 12 employees and clients across 3 continents. "The photographer wants to know about the timeline," Mom continued, oblivious to the irony. "You put together that schedule, right?" "Of course," I said, pulling out my phone. The same phone that had been buzzing all morning with congratulatory messages from investors, tech journalists, and industry leaders. Messages my family never thought to ask about. The morning flew by in a blur of vendor management and crisis control. The florist had brought white roses instead of cream, the cake was delivered to the wrong entrance, and the string quartet was stuck in traffic. Each problem landed on my desk because, as Mom put it, Jessica always figures things out. By 10 a.m., I'd solved 6 crises while fielding calls from my CTO about our product launch next week. My laptop stayed open in the bridal suite, financial projections hidden behind wedding spreadsheets. "Jessica!" Emma's voice cut through the chaos as she emerged from hair and makeup looking absolutely stunning. "The marriage license. Please tell me you remembered to bring it." I handed it over along with the rings, the emergency sewing kit, and the backup bouquet I'd ordered just in case. Emma barely glanced at me as she accepted everything. "You're such a lifesaver," she said, but her tone suggested I was simply doing what was expected. "I don't know what I'd do without my faithful assistant." "Assistant?" "Not sister. Assistant. Where's your +1? Mom asked, noticing the empty chair next to mine during the ceremony rehearsal. "Still no boyfriend?" "I'm focused on other things," I said quietly. "Well, you can't work forever," Aunt Linda chimed in. Emma found the perfect balance, a successful husband to take care of her. I bit my tongue. Emma had quit her job at the marketing firm 6 months ago to focus on the wedding. Her idea of balance was finding someone else to handle responsibilities while she handled the fun parts. During the ceremony, I sat in the third row, phone on silent but buzzing constantly with messages. Our app had just hit 100,000 downloads, a milestone we'd been working toward for months. My team was celebrating in the company Slack channel, while I watched Emma promise to love and cherish her new husband. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, having just achieved something I'd dreamed of since college, sitting alone at my sister's wedding while everyone assumed I was the unsuccessful one. "Beautiful ceremony," said the woman next to me. "Are you family?" "Sister of the bride," I replied. "Oh, you must be so proud." Emma mentioned she has a sister who helps with everything. She said you're like her personal assistant. My cheek burned with embarrassment. Personal assistant. That's how Emma described me to people. The reception began with the usual speeches. Dad talked about his 2 daughters, but spent 5 minutes praising Emma's grace and beauty, while mentioning me only as reliable Jessica who made tonight possible. Emma's maid of honor speech was worse. "Emma is so lucky to have a sister who takes care of all the boring stuff so she can focus on being fabulous. Jessica, you're like the ultimate big sister servant, always there when we need you." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Servant. She'd actually used that word. I felt my phone buzz with a text from David Morrison, the lead investor. Saw the TechCrunch follow-up article. "Brilliant interview. You're going to change the industry, Jessica. Proud to be part of your journey." The contrast was staggering. In one world, I was a visionary entrepreneur changing how businesses manage workflow. In this world, I was the family servant who existed to make other people's lives easier. The speeches continued with each one painting the same picture. Emma as the star, me as the supporting cast member whose greatest achievement was being helpful. I'd contributed $15,000 to this wedding from my personal savings, coordinated with 20 vendors, and spent countless hours making sure every detail was perfect. But all anyone saw was good old reliable Jessica doing what she always did. "Now," the DJ announced, "we have a special surprise. The father of the groom, Mr. William Morrison, would like to say a few words." William Morrison. The name made my blood freeze. Morrison Ventures. My lead investor was Emma's new father-in-law? How had I missed this connection? I watched in shock as the man who'd shaken my hand just 3 weeks ago in a Silicon Valley conference room stood up, adjusted his tie, and walked to the microphone. He looked exactly the same. Distinguished, confident, commanding attention without trying. "Thank you," he began, his voice carrying easily across the vineyard. "It's wonderful to celebrate Michael and Emma today. Love stories are beautiful, but I'd like to share a different kind of story about someone here tonight." My heart started pounding. There was no way he'd recognized me, was there? I'd been in business attire at our meetings, hair pulled back, completely professional. Tonight I wore a simple blue dress, hair down, trying to blend into the background. 3 weeks ago, William continued, I had the privilege of meeting one of the most impressive young entrepreneurs I've encountered in 30 years of investing. This person had built something remarkable, a software platform that's already transforming how companies operate. The crowd listened politely, probably wondering where this was going. The presentation was flawless. The business model, revolutionary. The vision, extraordinary. We invested $5 million on the spot, our fastest decision in company history. I felt dizzy. He couldn't be doing this. Not here. Not now. What struck me most wasn't just the brilliant technology, but the character of the founder. Someone who'd built a company from nothing while maintaining incredible humility and grace. Someone who understood that true success means lifting others up, not stepping on them. Emma was smiling and nodding, probably thinking this was leading to a compliment about her. Imagine my surprise, William said, his eyes scanning the crowd until they found mine. When I arrived here tonight and discovered that this remarkable CEO, this visionary entrepreneur who's about to change an entire industry, was sitting quietly in the third row, having spent her entire day making sure every detail of this wedding was perfect. The crowd stirred, confused. I felt every eye turning toward me. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to meet Jessica Parker, founder and CEO of TechFlow, our newest portfolio company, and quite possibly the most underestimated person in this room. The silence was deafening. I could hear the wind through the vineyard, the distant sound of traffic, my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. Emma's face had gone completely white. Mom's mouth was hanging open. Dad looked like he'd been hit with a brick. Jessica, William continued, would you mind standing up? I think your family deserves to know who they've been calling their assistant. On shaking legs, I stood. 300 faces stared at me in complete shock. $5 million, William repeated. Series A funding for a company that will revolutionize workflow management. TechFlow already has contracts with major corporations and is projecting $50 million in revenue next year. Jessica built this while somehow also planning what I'm told was a flawless wedding. He paused, letting that sink in. I've been in business for 3 decades. I've funded dozens of startups. Most founders are so focused on their companies, they can barely remember to eat lunch. But Jessica spent 8 months coordinating vendors, managing timelines, and handling crises for her family while simultaneously building a multi-million-dollar company. The crowd was completely silent now. Even the servers had stopped moving. That's not just impressive business acumen, that's character. That's someone who succeeds while making sure the people she loves are taken care of. That's someone who could have hired the best wedding planners in the country but chose to handle everything herself because family matters. I felt tears threatening and forced them back. So when I heard the speeches tonight calling Jessica an assistant, calling her a servant, suggesting her greatest achievement was being helpful, his voice hardened slightly. Well, I thought you all deserved to know exactly who you've been underestimating. Emma made a small sound, somewhere between a gasp and a sob. Jessica, I hope you'll forgive an old man for embarrassing you publicly, but I couldn't sit there and listen to brilliant success being dismissed as mere helpfulness. Ladies and gentlemen, you're looking at the future of business technology. And she did it all while making sure her sister had the perfect wedding day. William handed the microphone back to the DJ and walked directly to my table. The crowd parted like water as he approached, everyone staring, everyone processing what they'd just learned. I hope that wasn't too presumptuous, he said quietly, extending his hand. But I couldn't let that continue. Thank you, I managed, shaking his hand while still in shock. Michael never mentioned his aunt-in-law was our newest superstar. Small world, isn't it? Aunt-in-law, in all the wedding chaos, I'd never made the connection between Emma's fiancé, Michael Morrison, and Morrison Ventures. Jessica. Emma's voice behind me was small and shaky. I turned to see her standing there, wedding dress pristine, but her face crumpled with confusion and shame. Emma, I said gently. $5 million? She whispered. You have a company worth $5 million? 25 million, actually. That's the current valuation. She stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language. But you never said? When would I have mentioned it? Between coordinating your flowers and managing your caterer? You never asked about my work, Emma. You assumed it was unimportant. Mom appeared at Emma's shoulder, Dad close behind. Both looked stunned and guilty. Jessica, Dad started, then stopped. We had no idea. I tried to tell you. Remember last month when I said I had exciting news? You said you were too busy with wedding planning to hear about my little projects. Mom's face crumpled. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. You're in TechCrunch, said a voice behind me. I turned to see Emma's college roommate holding up her phone. There's an article here from 3 weeks ago. Rising star Jessica Parker closes major funding round. There are photos of you with investors. Within minutes, phones were out all over the reception. People were Googling my name, finding articles, sharing screenshots. The narrative was shifting in real time from helpful sister to hidden CEO. I can't believe this, Emma said, sinking into a chair. All this time, while I was stressing about centerpieces and dress fittings, you were running a company? I was doing both, I said simply, because you're my sister, and your wedding mattered to me. But why didn't you hire help? Why didn't you delegate the wedding stuff? I looked at her, this woman I'd spent 8 months serving, and realized she still didn't understand. Because you asked me to help. Because family comes first, even when family doesn't recognize what they're asking you to sacrifice. William Morrison was still nearby, chatting with the other guests who'd approached him with questions about the investment. I caught fragments of conversation. Revolutionary platform. Youngest CEO in our portfolio. Brilliant strategic mind. Each comment was a stark contrast to the evening's earlier characterizations of me as an assistant. Emma's maid of honor, Sarah, appeared looking mortified. Jessica, I am so sorry about what I said earlier. I had no idea. It's fine, I said, though it wasn't really. No, it's not fine. Calling you a servant when you're actually… God, I feel terrible. The apologies kept coming. Relatives who'd dismissed me, family friends who'd made assumptions, wedding guests who'd barely acknowledged me all evening suddenly wanted to congratulate me, ask about my company, understand how they'd missed such a significant success story. But the most painful conversation was with my parents. Honey, Mom said, pulling me aside, why didn't you tell us how successful you'd become? I tried, Mom. Multiple times. But every conversation became about the wedding. Every achievement I mentioned got brushed aside because Emma needed something. Dad ran his hand through his hair. We're proud of you, you know. We've always been proud. Have you? Because all evening I've heard about how reliable I am, how helpful I am, how good I am at handling the boring stuff. I haven't heard one word about being successful or accomplished or impressive. We didn't know, Mom protested. You didn't ask? I replied gently. For 8 months, you've seen me as wedding staff. Tonight was just the first time you heard me described differently. Emma rejoined us, having composed herself somewhat. Jessica, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Okay? Did helping with my wedding hurt your business? Did I ask you to sacrifice important work? I considered lying, making it easier for her. But she'd asked for honesty. Yes, I said quietly. I missed 3 major investor meetings because of vendor appointments. I had to reschedule our product launch twice because of wedding crises. My team covered for me countless times when I was handling wedding emergencies instead of company emergencies. Emma's face went white again. Oh my God. I almost ruined your company for my wedding. You didn't ruin anything. I made choices. I chose to prioritize your happiness over my convenience. But I didn't know the cost of those choices, Emma said, tears starting to flow. I thought you were just. I thought helping me was easy for you because you didn't have anything else important going on. The brutal honesty of that statement hung in the air. That's exactly what she'd thought. That my life was so unimportant that dropping everything for her wedding was no sacrifice at all. Later, as the reception wound down and guests gradually departed, I found myself sitting alone at my table, processing everything that had happened. My phone was still buzzing with notifications. News of William's speech had somehow made it to social media, and suddenly my LinkedIn was exploding with connection requests. Emma approached hesitantly, having changed out of her wedding dress into a simple sundress. Can we talk? She asked. Really talk? I nodded toward the chair across from me. I've been thinking about what Mr. Morrison said, she began. About character. About you succeeding while taking care of people you love. Emma, no, let me say this. I've spent my whole adult life assuming things would work out because they always had. When problems arose, someone solved them. Usually you. I never questioned it because it seemed natural. Jessica handles things. That's just who she is. I listened without interrupting. But I never considered what you were handling in your own life. What you were giving up to handle mine. I saw you as infinitely capable, so I assumed everything was infinitely easy for you. It wasn't about easy or hard, I said. It was about priorities. Your wedding was important to you, so it became important to me. But that's just it, Emma said, her voice breaking slightly. I made my priorities your obligations. I never asked if you had other priorities. I never considered that helping me might cost you opportunities or stress or sleep or $5 million in funding conversations. She was crying now, but quietly. I called you my servant tonight, Jessica. In front of 300 people. I called my brilliant, successful sister my servant because that's honestly how I'd been thinking of you, as someone who existed to make my life easier. The admission was painful but necessary. I've been reading about your company, she continued, pulling out her phone. TechCrunch, Forbes, Entrepreneur Magazine. There are articles going back 2 years about this incredible software you developed. Awards you've won, speaking engagements at major conferences. She showed me her screen, my professional headshot from a recent Forbes feature about young entrepreneurs. This woman, this CEO everyone's writing about, she's my sister. She's been my sister this whole time, but I was so focused on my own stuff that I never saw her. Emma, I need to ask you something else, and I need you to be completely honest. During these 8 months, while you were planning my wedding, did you ever resent me? Did you ever wish I would just handle my own problems? I thought carefully before answering. Sometimes, yes. There were nights when I was debugging code until 3 a.m. after spending the day dealing with your vendors, and I wondered why I was the only one who seemed to care about your wedding. Because I dumped everything on you and then went dress shopping, Emma said miserably. I treated my wedding like it was a project I could delegate to my infinitely capable sister while I enjoyed the fun parts. You were excited. You were in love. You wanted everything to be perfect. At your expense, I made my dream day your second job. We sat in silence for a moment, watching the cleanup crew clear tables around us. I want to make this right, Emma said finally. I don't know how, but I want to try. You don't need to make anything right. Tonight was your wedding day, exactly like you dreamed it would be. That was the goal. No, Jessica. The goal should have been celebrating love and family. Instead, I spent months treating my sister like hired help while she was building something extraordinary. That's not the person I want to be. I looked at Emma, really looked at her. Behind the guilt and embarrassment, I saw something I hadn't seen in years, genuine recognition of who I was beyond what I could do for her. What do you need from me going forward? I asked. Nothing, Emma said immediately. That's the point. I need to stop seeing you as someone who takes care of my problems and start seeing you as someone with your own incredible life. I want to know about your company. I want to understand what you've built. I want to be proud of you the way you've been proud of me. I am proud of you, Em. You found someone who loves you. You planned a beautiful wedding. You're starting a new life. Those are real achievements. But I did it all by leaning on you. Your achievements. You did those while supporting me. That's actually incredible. The next morning, I woke up in my apartment to find my phone flooded with messages. The story had somehow made it beyond the wedding guests. Someone had posted William Morrison's speech on TikTok, and it was going viral with captions like CEO reveals family has been treating her like a servant, and investment mogul exposes family's treatment of successful daughter. The video had been viewed 2 million times overnight. My startup's website traffic had increased by 3,000%. Our customer service inbox was full of inquiries from potential clients who'd heard about us through the viral video. My team was in the company Slack channel, half panicking and half celebrating the unexpected publicity. Emma texted me at 7 a.m. I saw the video is everywhere. Are you okay? Do you need me to make a statement or something? I called her instead of texting back. I'm fine, I assured her. Actually, it's been incredible for business. Sometimes the best marketing is just telling the truth. The comments are intense, Emma said. People are really angry at how we treated you. I'd seen the comments. Thousands of them. Stories from other people who'd been underestimated by their families, who'd succeeded quietly while being taken for granted, who'd sacrificed for siblings who never noticed the cost. The internet loves an underdog story, I said. Don't read too much into it. Jessica, I need to tell you something. Michael and I talked all night about this, about how his family is going to see me now, knowing how I treated you, about what kind of person I've been. Emma. His parents are investors, Jessica. They're going to be my in-laws. They've invested millions in companies. They understand success and ambition and hard work. And their first impression of me is watching me call their newest investment a servant. I hadn't considered this angle. Emma was about to join a family that valued exactly the kind of achievement she'd dismissed in me. Michael's mother pulled me aside last night, Emma continued. She said she was excited to get to know Jessica's sister, not Emma who married Michael, but Jessica's sister. Like my most important identity is being related to you. That's not. It is, though. It is how it should be. You're the one with the extraordinary story. I'm just the sister who is too self-absorbed to notice. Over the following weeks, things shifted dramatically in my family. My parents, clearly embarrassed by the public nature of their oversight, began asking detailed questions about my company. Dad, who worked in traditional business, was fascinated by the tech industry. Mom started bragging to her friends about her entrepreneur daughter. But the biggest change was Emma. She threw herself into learning about tech flow with the same intensity she'd brought to wedding planning. She read every article about me, watched my conference presentations online, and even sat in on a team meeting to understand what we were building. "I want to help," she said one day over coffee. "I know I can't undo 8 months of taking you for granted, but I want to contribute something." "Emma, you don't need to. I have a marketing degree and experience in social media. Your company could use better content marketing. Let me help with that. Not as your sister who owes you, but as a professional who believes in what you're building." It was a generous offer, but I worried about mixing family with business after everything that had happened. "Think about it," Emma said. "I promise I understand the difference between being helpful and being taken advantage of now." 6 months later, Emma did join my team as head of marketing. Not because she was my sister, but because she'd proven herself capable and committed. She'd spent 3 months studying our industry, developing campaign strategies, and creating content that genuinely impressed our advisory board. The viral video had died down, but its impact remained. TechFlow had grown to 25 employees. We'd signed major contracts with companies that found us through the unexpected publicity. Forbes had featured us again, this time focusing on our rapid growth following the wedding speech heard round the world. My relationship with my parents had evolved too. They'd begun treating me as an adult with important responsibilities rather than their eternally helpful daughter. When family issues arose, they'd ask if I had time to help, rather than assuming my availability. But the most meaningful change was with Emma. Working together had given us a new foundation, one based on mutual respect, rather than one-sided obligation. She'd proven she could be the supportive sister she'd claimed to be, and I'd learned to accept help without resentment. "You know what's funny?" Emma said one day as we reviewed marketing analytics in the office. "I spent my whole life thinking you were the practical one, and I was the dreamer. Turns out you were dreaming bigger than all of us." "You're dreaming pretty big yourself now," I pointed out. "Your campaign strategy for the fourth quarter is brilliant." "I learned from the best," she said with a smile that held none of the old expectation or entitlement. "My sister, the CEO." The wedding had been everything Emma wanted. Beautiful, memorable, perfect. But the real celebration had come after, when my family finally saw me clearly for the first time. Sometimes it takes a public revelation to make people notice what's been right in front of them all along. William Morrison remained a mentor and advocate. His investment had been proven wise. TechFlow was ahead of every projection we'd made. But more than that, his willingness to speak up that night had changed everything. "You know," he told me during our quarterly board meeting, "I've given thousands of speeches in my career. But that wedding toast might be the most important thing I've ever said publicly." "It certainly changed my family dynamics," I agreed. "It did more than that. It reminded everyone listening that success isn't always visible, that the people we underestimate might be the ones accomplishing the most, and that character matters more than recognition." He was right. The story had resonated because so many people had experienced being overlooked, underestimated, or taken for granted by the people who should have celebrated them most. Today, TechFlow employs 40 people across 3 offices. We've revolutionized workflow management for companies around the world. And yes, Emma is still our head of marketing, one of the best decisions I've made as CEO. But beyond the business success, what matters most is what we learned about family, respect, and recognition. My parents now introduce me as our daughter, the CEO, with genuine pride. Emma has become not just my sister, but my colleague and friend. The viral video still surfaces occasionally, usually when someone wants to make a point about hidden success or family dynamics. Each time, I'm reminded of how profoundly things can change when people finally see you clearly. If you're watching this and you recognize yourself in this story, if you're the one always helping, always solving problems, always being taken for granted while you build something extraordinary, know that your achievements matter. Your success is real, even if the people closest to you haven't noticed yet. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply continue succeeding quietly until your success becomes too big to ignore. Sometimes it takes an outside voice to make your own family listen. And sometimes the people who've underestimated you the most become your biggest champions once they understand who you really are. Your story matters, your achievements count. And you deserve recognition from the people who matter most, not just from strangers on the internet. What's your hidden success story? Have you been underestimated by people who should know better? Drop your experiences in the comments below. I read every single one, and your story might inspire someone else who needs to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more stories about family dynamics, hidden success, and finding your voice. Share this video with anyone who needs to remember that their achievements matter, even when their family doesn't see them yet. Remember, you don't need permission to be successful, but you do deserve recognition for your success. Keep building, keep achieving, and trust that the right people will eventually see what you've accomplished. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, your success is never hidden from the people who matter most. Sometimes it just takes time for family to catch up to who you've become.